Hi, Dave McComb, Semantic Arts. I just came back from the 10th annual Semtech and a great session. Had a lot of time there, had a lot of folks we know. And one of the topics that came up reminded me of a video I've got on my list of things to make, so I'm kind of inspired to do that. That's what I'm doing right now. The topic is concrete abstractions. And what brought it up was when the folks from Google were talking about their ontology called schema.org. They said one of their keys to success in adoption has been the use of, they just called it concrete classes, but I would broaden that to say concrete abstractions. And they had some counterexamples which are exactly what we've tried to avoid. So I want to talk a little bit today about what we mean, and I think schema.org means, by concrete abstractions. We'll have some more stuff later about how schema.org and JISC can be tied together. Just a quick word about that before I forget. While we have sort of philosophically the same idea, schema.org is an ontology for essentially marking up your web pages to enhance the search experience. And JISC is really more for building your internal systems or doing systems integration. So a little bit more focus on the kinds of concepts you need and would find in an enterprise to build things. But obviously there's a lot of crossover. So I went and typed in the term concrete abstraction into the browser. And sure enough, somebody wrote a book, and in fact, in the intro, they said almost exactly what I just said, which sounds like an oxymoron, but it turns out to be quite helpful. This was a book about the programming language Scheme, and it's out of print, although you can still get the PDF. It looks pretty good. I'm gonna work on that for a while. What we mean by concrete abstraction is to say, yes, there are classes in JISC, and of course they're abstractions. They're not individual instances, but we tried to get classes where most people would immediately identify what the instances of those classes would be, and they'd be fairly specific and fairly homogeneous. I mean, the classic case is person. Obviously, we have a JISC class called person, and it's the set of all people who are Homo sapiens, what everyone kind of knows and accepts to be a person, whether they're currently alive or dead. And we very intentionally excluded fictional characters. I think they are a bit abstract. Over here, went to schema.org, and sure enough, they allowed fictional characters. Ontologically, we think that's a bad idea. We think of people or fictional characters as being intellectual property. We don't think they're things that can owe you money or make obligations or enter into contracts, etc. But whatever, that's what happened in schema.org. And our set of top level concepts, things like categories, collections, content, which are very similar to what schema.org has for things like books and videos and audios. Intellectual property is our equivalent of what they call the creative work. They didn't have an intention, but magnitudes or measurements, interestingly not one of their top level concepts, etc. Most of the rest of them line up. Social being is probably our only, what I would call non-concrete abstraction, and it really is just the union of organizations and people, but we just can't seem to avoid it, because if you ever integrate in somebody's customer database or order database or whatever, they will have entities that they've done business with that they literally don't know whether they're organizations or persons. So we have to instantiate them as something, and we actually borrowed from Psych this concept of a social being, something that can enter into a contract. Speaking of Psych, the granddaddy of abstract upper level ontologies, got to Psych to try and see if I could find their sort of top level, high level concepts, but it was just there's just too much there. It's almost too hard to find anything. We did go through Sumo, another upper level ontology, and again, sort of hard to find the top level concepts there. But when I typed in person, sure enough, they have a concept similar to what we would call a person. Two others, the body or a grammatical category. Stop talking yourself in the third person. I mean, interesting, but sort of confusing, I would have thought. John So has done some excellent work, but it's kind of an example of the opposite of the concrete abstractions. These are pretty abstract abstractions. They may be complete and useful for some purposes, but not for ours. In general, we're trying to build something that people can fairly rapidly agree on what things mean, that we have measures and offers and things that happen in the future and things that are intentional. And these are the kind of things we think can form a stable, solid core. And I was kind of thrilled to see how well they aligned with schema.org, both in thought and also many of their specific examples. Thanks.